All right, I think we're good. Good. All right, everybody. Hey, what's up? It's John Barrows with J Barrows Consulting, and welcome to Make It Happen Mondays. We're on episode 13 right now, so lucky number 13. Hopefully, some of y'all chiming in here. Ask whatever questions as usual. Today, any topic is up for discussion, so feel free to hit me up. And today's topic is focus on what you can control, right? Because for me, I got so much shit going on right now. It's bananas. I've come up on from a business standpoint some really important decisions I got to make as far as the direction of my company and where I'm going to take this, because some recent actions that have happened that I can't really talk about, but you will find out a lot more about here in the next few months, which has really got me super excited. But it's obviously going to add a whole host of shit to my plate. That is one of those things where it's like, I don't know if I can add any more. But it's all good, and it's all about kind of the future and the direction and what I want to be doing and how I want to be driving things forward here. So I got that. I got a busier schedule now than I've ever had in my life. I just came back from Australia last week for a week in Australia, doing some awesome training for some clients. I'm going to Vegas tomorrow for a day, less than a day, so I can't get in too much trouble, thankfully. And then I got another booked week next week, and then I'm actually finally taking a vacation. So just as a heads up, y'all, I am taking off from May 24th to June 9th. I'm going to Italy for 3 weeks and fuck off everything, right? I'm going to take my phone and throw it into the water and not respond to a damn thing. So if you need something from me in those 3 weeks, tough shit. And I ain't gonna be doing Facebook. I'm gonna be doing Make It Happen. Well, maybe I will. Who knows? Maybe it'll be interesting, but we'll see what happens. But my point is there's a ton of shit going on right now, and I'm also paying more and more attention to where things are going. And this is why I wanted this topic to be focused on what you can control. Because, I read yet another article over the weekend about Oxford now predicting about, 26% of the jobs here in the next 10 years are going to be, completely irrelevant because of artificial intelligence and those type of things. And it's talking about how we're moving into a world where, there's going to be like, what happens when there's 20-30% unemployment, right? Like, what does that do to a society and everything else? And so, I'm not sitting here. No, I am. I'm sounding the alarm bells here for us, and the reason I do this is because my daughter, right, she's 6.5 years old, and my wife and I are having a challenging time talking about her education. Where do we want her to go? And part of me is like, I don't give a shit about education. I want critical thinking skills. I want the ability to adapt and those type of things, because who the fuck knows what's going to happen here in the next 10 to 20 years by the time she gets out of college. So, and I'm doing the same thing for us in our careers and in our industries and stuff like that. And I just continue to beg people to stop just going through the motions, right? Stop just going through the motions and doing what you're supposed to do, and pay attention and put yourself in a position where when things shift, you can adjust. And that's why I think sales is such a fantastic career if done right. And I add that to, this kind of freak out factor that I'm having with artificial intelligence and those type of things to, just something that happened on Thursday or Friday last week when a kid snapped me a question. And he was like, look, John, I've been crushing my numbers here for 10 months in a row. I've been crushing my numbers. I missed my numbers once, 1 month, and now I'm on PIP, right? Now I'm on performance improvement plan. He's like, is this normal? He's like, I'm super aggravated about this. And what should I do? And without enough context, my feedback to him was, look, that does suck. Like, if you've been crushing it for 10 months and then 1 month and you're on PIP, like, there's something off there. But the question, you got to kind of take a step back and look around. Like, is it only you that's happening to? Because if it is, they might be picking on you. But if they're picking on you, then it's got to be about some other reason than your numbers, right? It's got to be something about, it might be your attitude in the office. This might be your influence on other people. There might be a vendetta. There's got to be some underlying reason. If it's just about you and not everybody else, but it might also be about everybody else too. Like, there might just be a policy in place. So why don't you go, instead of reacting to, hey, I'm really mad, like, I don't deserve to be treated like this, why don't you take a step back and look at a bit of a bigger picture here? And he came back, he's like, you know what, dude, you're right. I asked around, and this is actually a company policy. And he had gone so far as to reaching out to his executive and scheduling a meeting to talk about it. And, where he was at the gonna, ask why and all this other stuff, but he flipped it and he said, you know what, fuck it, you're right. He's like, I'm just gonna focus on what I can control. I'm gonna go into that meeting trying to figure out how I can improve, how I can get better, how I can get off of this pip, and forget about the negative side of this and blaming anybody, and just realize what I can do, right? Because it was a policy. He was like, thankfully, I realized it was a policy in the company. It wasn't just about me. So adding that, because I think a lot of us get sucked into that vortex of, oh, what the fuck, this isn't fair, and blah, blah, blah. And you know what, to a certain degree, yeah, it's not, but life isn't fucking fair. And sometimes you just got to stop bitching about shit and start really moving forward and saying, okay, look, I'm just going to put my best effort forward. If my best effort isn't good enough, then I got to go find another place where I can excel, or I got to figure out a way to get better at what I do. And that's the same thing. I tie that to the evolution and where things are going from a artificial intelligence standpoint, because it's the same thing. It's like we can sit here and fight it and say, okay, whatever, and try to avoid the situation, or we can figure out how to leverage it and how to evolve with it. My mentality right now, sales reps, is, the image that I have in my head right now for sales reps moving forward is the kind of a switchboard operator. Remember the old school switchboard operators where you kind of plug one out and you connect people and those type of things? I think that's actually going to be where sales reps still have a significant impact, or what our job is going to be, specifically at the front end of the funnel, moving forward, where we're going to use these tools and these techniques and all this information that artificial intelligence is sharing with us, or allowing us to gain insights into, and then putting it together in contact strategies, figuring out how to, surround our clients with that message and connect with them. And if we're not paying attention to those things, we're in trouble. I just got off the phone literally just off before this Make It Happen Mondays, with a friend of mine who's in the legal industry, and he's realizing that, his lawyers got to go out there and find business, but they don't know how to do it because usually they're relationship driven. And he's like, look, I'm 60. I could probably ride this out for the next 5 to 10 years on the relationships that I've already developed. But these 30 somethings, 20 somethings coming into my industries, like, they don't have a book of business. They don't have a reputation. They have to go out there and make it happen. And I'm a little worried because lawyers aren't typically bred that way. They're not hunters. They're not sales people in a lot of ways, but you don't have to be a salesperson as a title to go out there and sell, right? Sales is about, find somebody with a need, making a connection, and making sure there's a right fit there, right? So needless to say, the whole focus on what you can control, a lot of us, like I said, take a step back and realize, what can I control of this scenario here? I talked to my daughter a lot we came up with an acronym to help her, because she's 6.5, and she was actually having a hard time dealing with this election. I think it was obviously because my wife and I were bitching and moaning about a lot of different things, but she was like, wow, that's unfair, that doesn't, and I'm like, okay, like, let's take a step back here. Let's focus on what we can control. And what is that? I came up with the acronym EAT: effort, attitude, and how we treat people. Right? So you can control your effort, you can control your attitude, and you can control how you treat people. There's not much else you can control in this world, right? You can't control how other people treat you. You can't control really yes, you can, but to a certain extent, you can't control of other people's perception of you. What you can't control is you working your ass off and doing the right things for the right reasons, right? So that's why showing up early, staying late for work, doing right by a customer, having the right attitude when going into your day, and instead of going in, oh, Mondays, fuck Mondays. No, that's why it's Make It Happen Mondays. Like, Mondays are great. If you're coming into Mondays saying, fuck Mondays, I hate them, yeah, they're going to suck. And then Tuesdays, maybe going to get better. And if you're working for the weekends, you're not in the right job. And if you're praying for Friday to come right now, you're in a lot of trouble, in my opinion. So make the best of what you got. All right. And I'm also going to highlight the whole goal setting. I bring that up time and time again. Where are you going? If you're not setting goals, then you're just along for the ride. Somebody else is dictating the path. If you are setting goals, you got something to strive for, and you can go for it, and every decision kind of backs that up. Otherwise, you're just kind of, like I said, going through the motions. one of the things I just got before that call with the lawyer, previous call, I know a lot of you have been following me. I was over at VaynerMedia for their 4D session, which is they do a deep dive. It's a 1-day deep dive session with all the department heads over at VaynerMedia. And they talk about creative and the social channels and brand building and all these different things. And then Gary came in at the end for about an hour and a half to 2 hours actually to do a Q&A with everybody, which was fantastic. There wasn't a big aha moment there that said, ooh, there's something I'm pulling out of this. But what it did help me realize was how important kind of that vision, the goals were, and also why you do what you do. Right? And so actually there's an exercise. I'm going to bring this up here. There's an exercise that they had us doing. I do it on my whiteboard here of, coming up with your vision. Let's see if this stretches here. Coming up with your vision about what's your why. Whoops, there it is. What's your why about why you're doing, and then what are the pillars of stuff that you're doing to support that why. And the reason I'm doing what I do, and I went through this exercise, which I thought was really valuable. The reason I do what I'm doing is because I really do genuinely think that sales is the best profession in the world when done right, and it's the worst when done wrong. And my pillars to help support that are, work your ass off, earn everything. What goes around comes around. And then what are the other ones? Yeah, believe in what you do, right? Those things are my guiding principles to help me figure out why I'm doing what I'm doing, and then creating content and making my decisions based on those things that support my principles. And so that's why what you're hearing with Make It Happen Mondays and all these different things that I'm doing here, it all works to support that driving why I do what I do, which is actually supporting my ultimate goal of what I want to do personally and the lifestyle that I want to live. So, I guess the point of this, I know I'm all over the place with this one just because I got so much shit going on inside my head right now. It's bananas. But I think the main point of today's Make It Happen Mondays is really, again, focus on you, focus on what you can control, and really do everything you can to put yourself in a position to be successful, but whatever success means to you, right? People think, some people think it's monetary things are success. That's fine. Dollar figures definitely, but shit, if you're making 35 grand a year, living a happy life and living the life that you want, then you win. Right? It's you if compared to somebody that's making 20 million a year and a miserable son of a bitch, I'd rather be the $30,000 a year person living with a nice family and enjoying my life than the $20 million person who's just a miserable prick. So define what success means for you, and then set those goals about where you want to be lifestyle standpoint wise, like really, really, think 5 years out. Where do you want to be lifestyle, kind of car, what kind of house, those type of things. And then what's your guiding principle of how you're going to get there? And then what are the goals and activities you're going to do to help support that? Because too many of us get bogged down by things we can't control. What other people think of us. Ultimately, I don't give a shit what other people think of me. I do things for the right reasons, and if you don't like me, you don't like me. That's why I don't really care about negative comments. I mean, I do. I want to make sure that I'm not ultimately offending somebody or whatever. But at the end of the day, if my intentions are pure and I'm doing things for the right reason, if you don't like me, I don't fucking care. I want to find those kids that do like me, right? And really, I don't know. I can't stress how important this is, because I see so many people get stuck in the weeds, if you will, and expend so much energy on the negative side of what's happening to them, of stuff they really have no control over. And if they were to just switch their mentality and say, fuck it, I'm just going for it. And, if you don't, whatever happens, you'd be amazed at how much things turn around. Right? There was a time, my first startup with Thrive, there was such emotional baggage in that company where we would, at a certain stage of the company, like when we got to 30, 40, 50 people, there was more shit going on about internal politics and things that were happening, and, how people were upset about something and we had to meet about it and all this other stuff. The amount of time that I look back and say we wasted on emotionally dumb shit really held us back. Now, don't get me wrong, we crushed it and and we really excelled just because we were working our asses off. But man, we could have been 10 times better if we had cut through the bullshit and said, look, let's focus on what we can control. Let's have some structure in place to be able to address what we can't. But just everybody put their head down and go. And that's what my recommendation to everybody here is just put your head down and go. You do not know what's going to happen tomorrow. You do not know. What you do know is that things are going to change. What you do know is that something's going to happen that's out of your control. So let's focus on what we can. And it makes you a lot happier person. I think one of my, this is actually one of my favorite little, let's see, one of my favorite little cartoons here. It says, everybody wants to be liked and accepted, except for John. John doesn't give a fuck. And it's this little, I don't know if you can see it there, but it's this little cartoon where he's just up there and it's like this. I'm not saying fuck off everybody. I'm just saying fuck off to the people that are the haters out there, the trolls out there, or the people within organizations that are trying to bring you down or always or limit you. You know what I mean? If you're working at a company and you're working your ass off and you're asking for feedback and you're doing the right things, and you got to, by the way, you have to put that mirror up there that says, yes, I am, I'm genuinely doing everything I can here. If you're doing that and you're still not getting supported, if you're still not feeling like it's an environment that you can succeed in, then go find something else to do. Right? I mean, one of my guiding principles is find your passion or find something else to do. If you do not believe in what you do, or you do not believe you're in a location that can help you thrive to become your best, go find something else to do. Sales specifically is a brutal fucking profession. It's absolutely brutal. And it's 10 times harder when you don't believe in what you do, or you don't feel passion for the company or the product or the service or what you're doing. When you believe in it, it makes a difference. It makes a difference all the way. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's any questions out there. We tend to get a big long tail on these things from the Make It Happen Mondays. We get a lot of questions after the fact. But if you have any questions, hit me up now. Like I said, I'm always open for chatting about anything related to sales. I'm going to start playing around with different formats here. Friday afternoons, different timelines. I think I'll probably wait until after my vacation to play around with a bunch of different things here. But pay attention, right? Pay attention to what's happening out there, please. I want to see. Some kid asked me recently, last week when I was doing the training, they asked, hey, John, you train all these tech companies and on a lot of the same content, right? I customize I customize a little bit of my content for every client. But for the most part, the foundational stuff is the same. So she was like, you know what? You train everybody. So, everybody's got the same techniques. Everybody's got the same stuff. What makes people different? How can you elevate if everybody's got the same tools? I'm like, well, everybody can go out and buy a Big Bertha driver. Doesn't mean everybody's going to be hitting it 350 yards down the middle of the fairway and hitting it straight. To me, it's about what you do with the content. And this is true. And this is my challenge to everybody out there. There's a whole discussion around the distribution of talent or the bell curve of talent, which effectively in general says that you got your A players, your B players, and your C players, right? You got your great, average, and crap. And there's probably about 10 to 20% A's in every organization. There's about 60 to 70% B's. And then there's 10 to 20% C's. And my experience, it holds pretty true. If you got 10 people on a team, there's usually a couple that are rock stars. There's about 6 or 7 that are good, and there's about 3 or 4 that suck. And those are the ones that are always complaining and that type of thing. And so that's what I said about training too. So from a training standpoint, when I train reps, 10 to 20% of the reps are going to take what I do and run with it, and it's going to make a difference. 60 to 70% of the reps are going to do something different, maybe take a nugget or two, and then 10 to 20% of the reps are going to do absolutely nothing different. So my challenge to everybody who takes my trainings is be that top 10 to 20%. Don't be the other 80% of people that just barely do something different. If you're going to a training, you're there to learn something, learn it, execute it, apply it, run with it. So it's all about what you do with the content, not the content itself. Okay. It's all about the effort and the attitude and how you treat people. All right. So we do have a couple of questions. There's one coming in from Connor. What's up, man? Just read the article in Forbes where you made $400 a day. Seems like you were coming a long way from that with all the customization, but what's the hook and the body of the normal? Let's see, what was the hook and body normally of those callbacks at Thrive? Because I didn't get many callbacks, man. I was making, so my equation for those of you who don't know. So yes, thanks for the heads up on the Forbes article. They did an article for me that went out. It was just my story, which was very humbling to be put out there and the feedback. So thanks to everybody for whoever gave me feedback on that article. It was cool. But yeah, I mean, I talked about how, early on in my days at Thrive specifically, I didn't know, I was 24 years old, so I didn't know what I was doing. And the only thing I felt like I could control at that point in my life was my effort, right? Because I didn't know any better. I didn't have any real skills from a sales standpoint. So, but I knew I could work hard. And so I figured out what my equation was. My equation was $1,600 a month, got me 8 meetings a month, got me 4 proposals, got me 2 pieces of closed business as an average deal size of $3,500. And that's why I believe we all need to know our equation, right? Actually, I wrote a blog post on this. Type in J Barrows, know your equation, and I throw out a spreadsheet there to help you figure out what your equation is. But how many dials, and I figured that out. So it was literally $1,600 a month, $400 a week got me 8 meetings a month. I did that for 5 years. And I thought back then it was all about the elevator pitch. It was all about coming up with that perfect message that was, that would get people to call me back. And I'll prove it to you here, by the way, Connor. Check this out. So here's my voicemail. Here's my elevator pitch. Here's the exact voicemail that I left 399 times a year, or 399 times a week for 5 years. And it went like this. And by the way, I promise you, I am not reading this. Hi, this is John Barrows with Thrive Networks. We do outsourced IT support for small to mid-sized companies in the Boston area, and we take a really unique approach to manage your IT infrastructure by combining the best of what people and technology have to offer. We tie our network operations center and our managed services to your environment so we can take care of all the small things on a proactive basis. So when the engineers come on site, they can take care of the higher level, more strategic initiatives to help drive your business forward. I'd love to talk to you about your IT support needs. If you could call me back at 617-529-7271, I'd really appreciate it. This is John Barrows with Thrive Network, 617-529-7271. And ooh, was I proud of that. I would leave that voicemail. I'd be like, what's up? Nailed it again. Pitch, tone, everything was perfect on that one, right? And then all of a sudden I started looking at my numbers. I wasn't getting a damn callback. I would get more callbacks when I would screw up a voicemail than I would nail the perfect one every time, right? So I did this one by mistake once. I was like, hi, this is John Barrows with Thrive Networks. We do outsourced IT support for small to mid-sized. Oh, shit. You know what? I'm sorry. I was trying a new pitch there. That was a disaster. Look, we fix computers. You got problems with your computers. Call me back at 617-529. I got more callbacks with that approach than hands down. So I started doing it on purpose. And so back then it was a volume game. Now the volume still needs to be there. All right. That's why a lot of you is like, oh man, 50 dials, like make your fucking 50 dials, right? If you're being told to do it, do it. But do it in a more intelligent way than I did it. I just made my ears bleed. Think about it. You've heard me say this before all the time. My number one recommendation for everybody out there is A/B split test everything you do. Literally A/B split test. So if you have one persona, CIOs in the healthcare industry, come up with 2 different messages to them. Make 20 phone calls with this approach, make 20 phone calls with that approach. See which one yields a higher response rate. Gatekeepers, when dealing with gatekeepers, come up with 2 different approaches to dealing with gatekeepers. Make 20 phone calls with this, 20 phone calls with that, see what happens. That way you start to figure out what works, because what works for me is going to be different than what works for you. I'm John Barrows from Boston, Massachusetts. I take a pretty direct and in-your-face approach to selling. That might not fit with some of y'all personality styles and stuff like that. So, and I'm not saying my approach is the best approach. I'm just saying it works for me. So let's put some foundational things in place here and let's start tweaking our message. Now, Connor, to go back to your question here, I'm much more of the quality oriented approach these days, where I go do homework and, make a relevant connection. But I'm also realizing that the amount of noise that's out there right now, it's really hard to break through. And what I've really shifted my training towards is more telling your story. So a contact strategy. So instead of it being the first, just one email or one voicemail or something like that, and hoping that is going to be the best, it's about the story we tell. Because, I've read study after study that talks about how many touches it takes to get in touch with somebody, right? Like 5 touches, 10 touches, whatever. regardless, I've never seen a study that says one touch, right? So this is why, by the way, it is not worth spending a half an hour writing one email to an account. It's just not. But that story, 5, 6, 7 touches, and what's the first one? That's why I sit down when I do my prospecting. I sit down, I pick an account, and I look for 4, 5, 6 different things to say to them all at the same time, so I can tell my story there. Right? So I'll sit down and say, okay, let me do a bunch of research. Let me see if I can find a bunch of different things here. Let's add some stuff in here. Okay, so my first touch is going to be about this, and then schedule touch 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And because I've already done the research, I take that content, I put it in those activities. So now I know what I'm going to say when that activity comes up, and I can tie them together so that there is a story to tell here. Actually, I don't make my, just a FYI, I don't make my first touch my best touch anymore. It used to be, now it's not. I usually wait until the third or fourth one because stats show that those are the highest response rates. So, but the hook, man, Connor, there was no hook. It was just, I spent 6 years. I mean, I've been working probably 6 days a week on average for the past 20 years of my life. But man, I was at Thrive. I was going to 4 or 5 networking meetings like networking group meetings on a weekly basis, and going to 4 or 5 different networking events at night, while making $400 a week and going on 8 meetings a month and driving all over Massachusetts. And I think that attributed a lot to my success because, like I said, I wasn't the brightest kid coming out of college. I drank my way through 4 years of college. I mean, I got my degree in marketing, but whatever. I'm not saying I'm dumb. I'm just saying I'm not like Harvard or MIT type of smart, right? But I know I can work hard. It's like one of my favorite quotes with Will Smith. He's like, when you get on a treadmill, he talks about like, I'll die on a treadmill. It's like, I'm either gonna outlast you, or I'm gonna die on the treadmill because you ain't gonna beat me just because I'm giving up here. And that's kind of my mentality about everything that I'm doing here. So we're up on the hour here. I got to bounce for another 15 calls this afternoon. Hopefully y'all got some value out of this. Again, keep the questions coming. Hit me up on Snapchat. John M as M Barrows, all one word. Also, LinkedIn, Twitter, all those different avenues. I spent an hour this morning with a kid who reached out to me, said looking for some advice, and I gave him, just free consulting there, just because I want to make sure that the sales is done right. All right, that's that guiding principle I was telling you about here. So go out there. Again, focus on what you can control, eat, effort, attitude, and how you treat people, and go make it happen. All right, everybody? Make it a great day. Cheers.